Hey, Mr. Wonderful here, and I'm here to answer your questions from the internet. This is investor support, and here we go. This is large purpose. Okay. Is VOO and chill a viable strategy? VOO is one of the least expensive ways to invest in the S&P 500. These are called ETF, exchange traded funds, and it's a very good vehicle. And frankly, yeah, it is a good way to chill. Bronco. What kind of a name is this? Bronco? What are you, Bozo Bronco? Why do so many people say you can't time the market when you can? That's not true, Bronco. Nobody can time the market. Everybody tries. You cannot time the market. I stopped trying to do that decades ago. I got my hiney spanked, as you will, Bronco. It's going to happen to you. Here's one from professional_soft258. Should I make a starter emergency fund or pay off debts? You gotta pay it off. If you know you're being charged 21% interest on a credit card, some of them as high as 23%, you're out of your friggin' mind if you don't pay that off. I can't make 23% a year. Either can you. It's really hard to do that. All right, next on the hit parade. Gentry Court 2121. How do I get started investing for the very first time? You got to use an app. It's the easiest way to do it. If you're just starting out and your salary is $68,000 a year, that's the average salary in America, you download it on your phone. You decide I'm going to keep 10 to 15% of my salary each month. The app is going to take it out of my bank account and just put it into an ETF in the market or a mixture of ETF and bonds, which you can set it up that way. Reswin asks, Palantir may be the most overvalued firm of all time. You could have said that about Apple. You could have said that about Amazon. You could have said that about Netflix. There's so many companies that you think are overvalued, but over time prove out their growth objectives. Palantir is about data, and data is the new oil. And they were the first to go this way and help both governments and companies mine their data, become more efficient, more productive, more profitable. So are they overvalued? Only time will tell. So far, it's been just killing it because data is really important, and data is what drives AI. So they're in the right space right now. That's why it's been performing so well. Here we have one from Caldostan. Everyone investing in Bitcoin. What exactly are you investing in? Hype, technology, adoption? What makes it a good investment? Because I'm not convinced. So listen, you don't have to invest in Bitcoin. No one's forcing you to do that. I do invest in Bitcoin because I'm a believer in crypto and a believer in digital payment systems over time. I have a general rule you should think about. Don't put the farm onto any one stock. In other words, don't bet everything, ever. So my diversification strategy was taught to me by my mother. Never more than 20% in any one sector, including crypto. Never more than 5% in any one stock or bond. Now we have 11 sectors in the S&P, including real estate, which was recently added. It's the most recent. Crypto is not yet a sector, but I believe it'll become the 12th, probably within 5 years, because it's being legitimized through policy. All right, here's a question from Illustrious Stock 3068. What do you think the overall return on investment for Shark Tank is? Well, nobody really knows for sure because there's guest sharks, the regular sharks, and nobody really puts together all the data. But here's what we do know. It's been on for 17 years. Something's working out. Entrepreneurs keep coming every year because it does a phenomenal job in helping them launch their businesses, create jobs in America, sell millions of dollars worth of product and services. And the sharks have done quite well. Otherwise, we wouldn't come back either. RJ Investing asks, how long until average investors realize AI is a bubble that will never pay off? Yeah, they said that about the internet too back in 1990. Wrong. Technology has a nasty way of being right sometimes, and certainly AI is creating a lot of excitement about productivity, margin enhancement, customer acquisition cost, doing a lot of robotics, working on all kinds of new technologies that we never even thought about, changing how movies are made, you name it. It's starting to affect every sector of the S&P 500. So I'm not sure it's a bubble. Time will tell. Big Phase 7911. Love that name. Does anyone, absolutely anyone, think that Tesla stock will go back up to its peak? When you're buying Tesla, you're buying more than an electric car company. You're buying a data company, you're buying a robotics company, you're buying a company that understands energy, and they have a lot of resolution in terms of their drive towards autonomous cars. So you're buying sort of the future. King J-U-R-G-Z. King J. Can someone please explain to me how short stocks actually work? Shorting is very risky. It has unlimited losses because you're basically selling a stock you don't own. And you're assuming it's going to go down, then you're going to buy it back. And you're going to profit between what you've bought it, if you shorted it at 100, and then if it goes down to 50, you buy it back and you made $50. But what happens if it goes to 200? Oops, you just lost $100. What happens if it goes to $1,000? What happens if it goes to $10,000? That happened in the internet bubble, and people got killed. So I wouldn't short stocks unless you really know what you're doing. That's what hedge fund guys do, and very, very risky. Javanalex asks, which is the best product that has got an offer on the tank on your perspective? You know, here's the thing. You just don't know. You can make the assumption each year when you, let's say, invest in a dozen deals, oh, I think they're all winners. But that won't be known for at least 5 to 7 years. Then you're going to find out which ones win and which ones lose. And so sometimes the craziest deals make the most money. That's the idea of diversification. So the ones I've loved, I found out 5 years later, were monster winners, like Base Paws or Wicked Good Cupcakes. You know, Blue Land, they're all huge winners. But you don't know out of the gate. You gotta wait. You have to let them marinate. Look, it rhymes. That's fantastic. Jumbob994, why wouldn't I invest heavily in gold? I wouldn't invest heavily. I have a 5% weighting in gold. And whoa, has that ever worked? Ichihuahua caramba, I'm so happy with my gold. Now, I own it 2 different ways. The GLD is the ETF, but I like to touch my gold, so I actually own the bullion. But when you own the bars, you have to pay for storage. You're not going to walk around and put it under your mattress. You got to put them in a safety deposit vault, and you pay for that. All right, next on the hit parade. Technical Bank 6670S, is being a successful day trader really even possible? Yes, it is possible, but it's really hard work. I mean, this is a full-time job. It's not for me, not something I want to do. There's a huge community all around the world that do this, and they kind of roam the earth in bands online. Not easy, and I would say the majority lose money, but some of them do quite well because they're really adept at figuring out trends or understanding momentum. But a lot of them are actually trade all day long and then go back to cash at night and go to sleep because they don't want to be exposed to the market overnight. If you think you want a life like that, you can check it out. Not for me. Thank you. Electronic Change 380 asks, when did you realize the power of compound interest? Almost immediately when I was taught this, I think in grade 6. It's pretty friggin' cool. Just leave it there and let it compound and grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. Basically, you can double your money every 7 years, just making a few percent. It's incredible. This is from Slight Strip 1869. Sorry, Slight String 1869. Crazy name. High yield savings or invest in mutual funds. 4.5-year time span. No, not mutual funds. Fees are high and they're tax inefficient. ETFs, exchange traded funds. I would do that with a 4.5-year time span. This is Jumper Bumper, the Jumper Bumper. Why do people buy individual stocks instead of funds? If you think you're so good that you can pick stocks and beat the index, give it a try. Learn the hard way. Virtually no one beats the index. It's so hard. So what you do is you set yourself up. Maybe you put, I don't know, I'm just telling you, make it easy for you, $1,000 into one account where you're picking stocks and another into the SPY. That's the SPY index, the ETF that tracks the entire SP 500. And then you find out the hard way. You're not that good. 90% of the time you can't beat it, so you might as well join it and stop trying to pick stocks. I don't pick stocks. This is a Reddit user asks, are dividend stocks ever worth it? The answer is absolutely yes. But the right dividend stocks, that you'll find a good index called OUSA that really focuses on those that actually pay dividends to make sure they're not taking on inordinate debt to pay the dividend. You want the dividend paid out of operating free cash flow. And that's just giving you back some of your profits, that's all. Of course it's worth it. Mona Shark Cavell 04 asks, what shark do you think has the best ROI? Oh, there's no question, it's Mr. Wonderful. Who else could it be? Thank you for that question. Jenna DD126 asks, what exactly is a hedge fund and what does a hedge fund manager do? So, hedge funds are a different beast. These are managers that usually are allowed to go anywhere, any geography, any security, and they can go short and long, which means they can bet against a stock or with a stock, and they try and beat the market. Some of them do very well, some of them not so much. Generally, you want to look at a 5-year track record of a hedge fund manager. If they beat a hurdle of, let's say, 7%, they take 20% of all the gains above that. Some of them have no hurdle, which means they take 20% of any gain. The point is you'd always ask what the terms are. The classic hedge fund is 2 and 20. 2% fees, 20% of any gains. So investors get 80, the manager gets 20. Some of them have done very, very well, and some not so much. Equivalent Blue Jay asks, how good of an idea is it to invest into startups, and how do I sift through them? This is what I do on Shark Tank every day. I don't invest just one company each season. Sometimes I do a dozen, because I don't know which one's going to work, and either do you. Startups are tricky, because history will tell you about 80% fail, and the 20% that make it pay you back for all your mistakes. But how many should you have? I think the magic number is a minimum of 7. And the way you do that is you go to a crowdfunding site like Start Engine. You can look at all the different deals and decide how much you're going to invest in startups and pick 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, 7 deals and manage your portfolio that way. Makes it very easy. Bikes or Beans asks, does the market need corrections? A correction is defined by a loss of 20% or more, or that's an entry into a bear market. Sometimes, because of calamities like pandemics, you get a lot of volatility. And yes, they do go up and down, but nobody can time them. It's impossible to know. And sometimes they go up violently, then they go down violently. But long term, don't bet against America, because the S&P 500 has provided 8 to 10% returns for almost 200 years. Alterna 9 asks, are there any logical arguments to not invest in international funds? No. Diversification is also geographic. You can find indices that provide, like those are ETFs, that will help you invest in other countries, like Europe. Europe, some years outperforms the S&P, you just don't know when. Far Lifeguard 5027 asks, why bother with medium, small cap funds when the large cap consistently overperforms them both? Not true. Simply not true. The Russell 2000 has companies that are growing a little faster than the S&P, so in the right conditions, like lower interest rates, they tend to outperform. There's no guarantee, and you never know when they're going to outperform, but they're the small companies that grow into big companies, and they grow faster. This comes from Duke Thumper. Different. What percentage of portfolio is worth holding in bonds as a 22-year-old? Great question. When you're that young, you can take more risk. The market provides better returns over time. When you're starting out, you can be as little as 20% to 30% in fixed income, bonds, and 70% in stocks. And then when you hit 50, you go 60 stocks and 40 fixed income. Then when you hit 60, you go 50-50. That's kind of a general rule. And you're sort of de-risking yourself as you get a little older because you've built up a nice little nest egg. Generally, the market gives you 8 to 10% every year. Samiki asks, what sectors or stocks do you think will boom in the next few years? Nobody knows. 7 stocks have been the majority of the S&P returns for the last 3 years. That's a very concentrated amount, and there's no guarantee they remain at the lead of the pack. That's why you want diversification. You don't want those stocks to become more than 5% each of your portfolio. Something to think about. Here's Mary Bit 8237 asks, how do you guys know when to sell? You never know when to sell, but a great rule is to make sure you stay diversified. So if, let's say, you own a stock that becomes more than 5% of your portfolio, that's too much in the world of diversification. So you sell it down to 5%. I've been doing that with Tesla for almost 10 years. It's the discipline of diversification that forces you to sell, and no one ever goes bankrupt taking profits. Look at it that way. Reddit user asks, which shark would you want to have a deal with? For me, it's Kevin, because I think he cares most about success of people he invests in. Yeah, even as Mr. Wonderful, I have to agree with you. I love that Kevin guy. I mean, he cares. That's what matters. It's really about betting on the jockey that's riding a good horse. That's what I want. I want entrepreneurs that can pivot. And by the way, almost 90% of my returns have come from women entrepreneurs. They get stuff done. You want something done? Give it to a busy mother. That's what works. But I agree with you. Mr. Wonderful agrees. Kevin's the dude. Well, that's it. Those are all the questions for today, and I really hope you learned something. Fantastic being with you. And by the way, I'm impressed with these questions. I'm glad you're thinking out there. And the key to success? Keep watching Shark Tank. Mr. Wonderful says, keep watching it or you're dead to me.